Hello, I'm here to host a session for this year's Festival of Discovery. My name's Kevin Cahill. I'm the former Chief Executive of Comic Relief and the Honorary Life President. But these days I describe myself as a purposeful meanderer. And today I've meandered over here to Hampstead Heath to talk to Alastair Campbell, who of course was the Director of Communications for the Tony Blair government and is now a writer, a campaigner and a broadcaster and of course a nature lover.
Go on, give it a big hug. Come on, put a bit of life in it. Get your arms right round it. Now shut your eyes, shut your eyes.
Yeah, I see. There's something happening.
Sort of gentle throb.
Hello, Alastair.
Hello, Kevin.
I've seen that you've gone on record as calling Hampstead Heath your happy place.
It's one of them, yeah.
And here we are on beautiful Hampstead Heath. It's not raining. Can you just tell us a bit why it is your happy place?
Well, look, we live just over there. All our 3 kids were born in that hospital there, the Royal Free. They all went to that school there, primary school, and then they went to schools there, senior school. And down the bottom there is the Lido, where I swim with Fiona every morning at 7 o'clock when I'm here. And then round here is just where we walk the dog every day. And the thing about that I love about it, I mean, you can see a few buildings over there, but if you get deeper in, I love finding the places where you literally cannot see any concrete at all. And there's quite a lot of them. And you just feel like, you know, you're in pretty much central London with this amazing green space full of amazing trees, wildlife. And I also get this that people are nicer out here than they are in town. More people sort of stop and have a chat and, you know, so yeah. It's and also I think to be honest, when I've had bad depression, some of the worst moments have been out here, because this is where I'll come to kind of escape everybody. But some of the best moments as well, because you sometimes...
Well, just on that, because you've been a public campaigner around mental health and better provision and trying to help people feel more confident about revealing that they've got issues and talking about it. And I just wonder, how important is nature, do you think, or can nature be in helping people tackle those kind of issues?
Well, I can only speak for myself and others that I talk to, and I find it fundamental. I find if I'm either diving into a depression or coming out of one, I always feel a little bit better if I'm surrounded by this rather than noise and urban and all that. And that goes even, by the way, for getting on a train and just getting out of London and suddenly seeing green fields. There's something about, and I guess it's just very, very within us all. That's kind of where we came from. It's primeval.
Do you go through any process when you're out in the countryside on the heath? Is it just contemplative, or do you look at the trees, or are you a tree hugger? I mean, years ago, tree hugging was kind of was frowned upon, but now everyone's trying to do it, you know.
Well, I grew up in Yorkshire till I was 11, and my dad was a vet, and he was a big farm vet. So a lot of our childhood was kind of going around with him in this amazing scenery in Yorkshire, right? And I'm not pretending I was conscious of it being amazing scenery, but looking back, I can see that just always felt like where home was. And likewise, all of our holidays, every single one, were in different parts of Scotland. My mother was from Ayrshire, from a farming background. My dad was from the Hebrides, Tiree. So all of our holidays were about amazing scenery as well. And as I've got older, I think I've realised I've always had that, but I now have it in a more conscious way. So I can't remember exactly why or when it started, but I just started this thing on social media of taking a picture of a nice tree every day and calling it my tree of the day, and it's gone absolutely bonkers. I mean, it's like if I get to 7 o'clock in the day now and I haven't posted my tree of the day, I'll get where's your tree, where's your tree, where's your tree, and I get all these people. Sometimes you do, you just think, oh, I haven't done a tree. I'll go out and just take a picture of a bog standard tree. You get all these people then sending their trees from all over the world, saying my tree's better than your tree, and I've just realised there's this thing about trees out there, and so the tree hugging thing. I'm like one of those people who used to think when Prince Charles went on about hugging trees, but now, yeah, absolutely get it, totally get it. Should we go and hug a tree?
Yeah, come on.
Let's go and find a nice tree to hug. They do talk back to you, So get your arms right around. Oh, definitely.
It's nice, actually.
Chatting away.
I've never knowingly done that before.
You've never knowingly done it. How do you unknowingly hug a tree?
Let's do a double hug then.
Double hug.
Do you give the trees names ever?
No. Well, I've got one tree actually over on the other side of the tree. I call it Sleepy Joe because we were walking there the day that Biden won the election.
All right. In lockdown, because that was a very difficult period, I think, for a lot of people, but particularly there seems to be an upsurge in issues around mental health for many, because if you're just locked down at home, you're not meeting people in the same way. But I think having the chance to go for a walk, which is one of the few things that we were allowed to do, or walk the dog. I know you've got your dog. Do you think it made a big difference during lockdown, being able to just get out?
Oh yeah, I think also it did. I mean, see, normally, even now, where we're sort of, well, I don't think COVID is anything, it's far from over, but it kind of, the government is sort of making everybody feel it's all over. But actually, normally, in pre-COVID, like when I'm in the Lido, when you're out walking here, look, you can't see a single plane in the sky at the moment. Now, normally, pre-COVID, there'd always been a plane in the sky, always. So I think I think there's been a bit of a kind of calming down. Whether that'll last, I don't know. I've certainly noticed more people out on the heath than there ever were before, definitely. And I've noticed more people swimming in the ponds, and I've noticed more people in the Lido, and I've noticed more people out for longer. I mean, sometimes Fiona and I will walk the dog, like for a really long walk. We'll bump into the same person about 4 times. They're just sort of, and they're out. And I think it is about people thinking they need this, whatever it is that nature gives them.
And what about the role of the dogs in this? We've just got a new dog, but what I find is you talk to people in such a different way when you've got a dog. You say, what kind of dog's that?
Well, our dog is a bit of a rock star. Honestly, she gets stopped. She's so cute. But I'll tell you the other thing I've noticed about mental health. When I'm going into depression, the dog knows.
Yeah.
Definitely knows. She doesn't leave my side.
And does she help you?
Yeah, definitely. She just sort of sits there. She doesn't speak. Yeah. She doesn't nag me. She doesn't bother me. She doesn't ask me to do anything. She just sits there and she sort of, it's really, really strange, but she knows. She's something about it she knows.
What's your dog's name?
Sky.
Yeah.
As in the island.
Yeah.
And she'll just come and lie against my leg and I'll sit on the sofa and brood.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I just wanted to go back to the tree of the day, which you mentioned. Has it surprised you how crazy it's gone and how popular it's become?
Well, the other thing I've discovered is how many other people do it. Brian Cookson used to run British cycling.
Yeah.
I saw he started following me and was commenting on my trees, and I realised he did it as well. And there's somebody else in America who does their tree of the day. I actually want to have tree Olympics. I want every country in the world to have it would be like a kind of, I hate reality TV, but imagine a reality TV show where every country in the world chose its number one tree, and then we had a global vote to choose the best tree in the world. Hey, now come on, Kevin, you're a TV man. Surely you can get that off the ground.
Well, it would be a brilliant idea. I'm just trying to think about how to raise money on it because that's what I always do. But
I tell you, if you look at my phone, right, my photos, it's just. I mean, look, I've already taken What?
Some today.
Same today. But if you look at them all photos thing, it's pretty much
Trees.
It's just it's mainly trees.
They are amazing. I was out at Runnymede a couple of months ago and came across this tree, the Ankerwick yew tree,
Right. Yeah.
which is 2,500
Amazing.
years old. They claim this the oldest tree in England. And just thinking about that
I
a
thought
tree.
the oldest tree in Britain is in Scotland, I think.
Yeah, it probably
most
is.
of the
This
best
is
things
this
are
is
in
just
Scotland,
this is
you know.
England. Yeah.
Yeah. But I the other thing I've got one of those apps where I can point at the tree.
Oh, I've
and-
got that. Picture
and it
this
tells
is
you
it
what it is.
called?
Yeah, picture this.
yeah.
I've got that one right, which is fine. But
Yeah.
I don't want to be an expert.
If you've not got picture this, we recommend you to go and get it
Yeah,
now.
picture this. It just tells you what it is. But I don't want to be an expert on trees.
No.
I like being. I like. There's a guy on the Heath. Is it David Humphreys? I think he's called. He works on the Heath, and he's the main tree guy.
Yeah.
And he honestly, if you talk to him, it's fascinating because he tells you the history, where the ones that went down in all the various storms, like I presume this one, and all the kind of stuff that's come and gone, and how long they've been here. He knows everything, and I'd love to be like that, but I'm worried that you lose that sense of just wow, you know. If you're looking at a tree and thinking history and but I just love suddenly coming upon a tree and going wow.
Do you have a favourite tree, or do you have a favourite group of trees, or is that
On the Heath.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
I've got a few places on the Heath where
Yeah.
I always like.
Yeah.
I always find a new tree. Yeah, and it's just this side of Kenwood.
and are you an oak man or a larch man, or
No, I don't.
Just like all trees.
No, I don't like all trees. I
Oh,
like
right,
the trees that I like.
Yeah.
Look, so I'll tell you why I love this one. Two reasons. One is the shape. Right, so it's on a hill. So how come this side is about half the size of that side? And I reckon it's because this side is kind of reaching out because it knows that's where all the action is. Do you think I'm right or wrong? And the other reason I love this tree,
Could it be the proximity to this copse?
yeah, it might be
that does
avoiding
it?
that one, but then why is it not avoiding that one?
Yeah.
So it's decided its own space. And the other reason I love this tree is I can sometimes sit here and through there's the Royal Free Hospital, which is a big part of our life. So this is one of the bits where I like looking at concrete.
Because all your kids were born in that hospital.
All the kids are born there. I've been in there many times myself for various things. And then, as you know, we picture this. Should we go and see what it is?
Yeah.
Eh?
Let's go and have a look.
Come on then, it's obvious.
I think it's an oak tree.
Very good, it's a common oak.
Yeah.
Common as
What I
much.
like on picture this is most of them have got other names like Stinking Bishop or
Oh, this has got
Rotting Foot or
common name, common oak, pedunculate oak, European oak, popular cultivars, Fastigiata costa, Leucombina.
but it's
So
mainly
it's a Leucombina.
a local. What
No, Leucombina.
is that? A little heart?
Oh dear, I don't know. Somebody's been painting, hasn't they? Yeah. Yeah, there's too much of that goes on. People defacing the damn things. I do think Scotland and the north of England, and also Fiona and I we went to the Black Forest
Yeah, how was
last
that?
year. Oh, just incredible.
Well, Germany's got some amazing forests.
Germany's
Yeah.
trees, yeah, they're pretty special. Australia's got good trees. Ethiopia's got good trees.
Yeah, I've seen some of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
California.
You see this Olympic idea, it can take off, Kevin, I'm telling you. And you can have individuals, you can have pairs, you can have team,
Copses.
the whole thing. You have
Copse of the
forests,
world.
forest of the world, tree of the world, copse of the world.
Seedling of the world. Just leave it with me, yeah.
Kevin, I'm trusting you.
And look,
Tree relief.
everyone's a tree lover now, though, aren't they? The Queen, Prince Charles,
Prince Charles, to be fair, has been
Judi Dench.
yeah, Judi Dench.
Yeah, it's catching on.
Yeah, Chris Packham.
Perhaps you've started a trend.
No, I think the trend's been there a long, long time. There've been tree lovers.
Yeah.
In fact, the other thing, I found somebody sent our next door neighbour. She was clearing out the house, and she gave me this book that was a government publication. In fact, you should do something.
Yeah.
It's a government publication from 1974 or 1950 something. It might be the 50s. and it's a book about why we should value trees, published by the government.
Who was in power at the time?
Well, the minister was Henry Brooke,
All right.
who I think was Peter Brooke's dad.
All right.
But it's just a fantastic book, and it's at the back. It's just got this list of trees and why we should value them. And it's got pictures of like streets with no trees, streets with trees. Which is the better street? Fantastic. So they've always been tree lovers.
It was Napoleon, wasn't it, who planted the whole of the
Yeah.
the kind of southwest of France? You know.
Was that not to do with? I mean, one thing I read was that it was about when you see them going through towns, it was to protect soldiers, to give soldiers.
It was the shade, yeah, because the sun was so strong
Yeah.
that they built the tree. They
Yeah.
planted the tree so that when they walked down the avenues,
The shade.
they'd be in the shade. Yeah.
My other favourite Napoleon fact from that era, and again I don't know if it's true, but I read that the baguette. Do you know where the baguette came from?
No.
Was because all the soldiers, the ones who were sheltering in the shade, when they stopped to eat, they were given these clumps of bread. And by the time they'd stopped to eat it, it had all sort of disintegrated to sort of crumbs in their back knapsack. So the baguette was designed with two thingies on there to put
To
down
go along
there,
their leg.
so as it went on their leg.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
Fascinating. I wanted to talk a little bit about the bigger picture and saving the planet, and because one of the things I also read was that you're a bit of an eco-warrior, therefore you've taken on more interest in the cause about how the world should try and be saved. And I just wonder what your observations are. This will be going out just after COP26. What will you have hoped will have happened at COP, and what do you think might actually happen?
I think these big international gatherings, I don't dismiss them at all. I think that it's incredibly important when you try to get decision makers, and you know this from your, stuff you've done, sometimes getting people in the same place, on the same agenda, with deadlines, it can produce stuff, it can. I worry that partly because of who we have as a government, that there isn't. I'm not convinced that for them it's anything other than like a big opportunity to look like global Britain means something. And I also worry that, I'll tell you what really alarms me, and it is the extent to which, particularly in America, but also here, the whole debate about the climate crisis has become part of the kind of culture war, and it's become part of left-right, and it's become, and that. So I think they're up against, world leaders, even though most of them are saying the right things. I'm not sure they're doing all the right things, and I also think, look, if you're in a democracy, so in a funny sort of way, it would be easier for the Chinese to do what ought to be done, but the politics that they have against America in particular is saying to them, well, hold on a minute, you enjoyed the sort of exploitation of the planet for centuries, and we were the little poor people that used to pat on the head. We're now kind of, we're progressing the way that you did, and you're not going to tell us how to stop. So there's that going on, and then within the left-right of the democracies, you've got a situation where you can see this developing, where the leftist or progressive voices are saying we've got to save the planet and future generations, and the right is saying, well, that's all very well for you, as your Hampstead intellectual liberal types, but who's going to pay for it? And it becomes just another kind of grisly culture war debate. Now, that doesn't mean that stuff isn't happening and progress isn't being made, because it is. But it's not happening at the pace that it should be.
I suppose the thing is, if what you'd hope for is a giant step in the right direction, even if the optimum result isn't achieved, because as you were just saying, getting people into the room to talk can usually be a very positive thing.
No, it is, and it's, if you think back to some of the, Paris Copenhagen. I remember when we were in government, you know, Kyoto was like it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I can remember John Prescott at Kyoto, never off the phone to us saying, we need to push on this and push on that. And, you know, and in the end, as you say, it wasn't a perfect outcome because it couldn't be. But it was a stepping stone, and it became a framing. You know, Paris has provided a kind of, it's been a stepping stone. It's not been the end. And so that's what these big events are. That's what they do. It's then about how people, you know, react to it afterwards, and whether the political will is maintained. But, you know, and even though I do my bit and try and do my bit, I mean, the fact is I still do go on probably too many airplanes, and I do, you know, because changing the way you live,
it's tough.
Is often the hardest thing for people to do.
Yeah. So if you think about campaigns like Insulate Britain and Extinction Rebellion, are they good things?
It's tough that. Look, what's their purpose is. Their purpose is to change the debate, with a view to changing the world, with a view to saving the world, right? So that you'd have to say is a good thing. And it's always difficult to get the balance right between changing the debate by getting the public attention you need to be able to articulate the cause that you believe in, and alienating public and political opinion. I mean, I'd love to know what people thought when women were jumping in front of horses.
Yeah, or chaining themselves to...
Yeah, I expect they thought, you know, you're damaging the cause. I expect a lot of people thought that. Well, history tells you they were a big part of the arc of progress. So I think it's not easy to work out exactly what the impact of this might be. You know, when you see, I was presenting Good Morning Britain on the day that you had that situation where Insulate Britain was stopping the traffic on, I think it was the M25, and there was a woman there trying to get her mum to hospital, sort of screaming and ending up in tears. And you see that, and for that moment, for the people watching that, they're damaging the cause. 5, 10, 15 years' time, depending on how it's all gone, who knows whether they've helped or hindered.
Yeah, and you have to say, someone like Greta Thunberg is a remarkable young woman. She began that when she was 15 or something.
I mean, that is, I mean, I'll tell you how you can sometimes judge whether people are making an impact is by looking at the people who attack them. And Greta Thunberg comes under a lot of attack, particularly by media people, social media people, big money. There was one the other day where one of our broadcasters, she did a speech about, Greta Thunberg did a speech about, you know, what needs to happen. And there was this comment, you know, when did you get your physics degree? And I thought, that is pathetic. What she's done, and I'll tell you what, you can never tell where these people are going to come from. Yeah. It's just so, it's almost accidental. There's no way that she thought, when she went and did that protest at the school, there's no way that she or anybody else thought she was going to become so quickly one of those rare people who is identified globally by their first name. There aren't many of them. Yeah. There are very, very few. And she has become that through a combination. It's actually the issue that's made her become that. Allied to where she's from, who she is, what she looks like, how she sounds, and that sense of this kind of, you can feel it every time you see her, this sort of burning zeal inside her. I think she's brilliant. I think she's absolutely fantastic.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I wonder, I mean, that's the big picture, but the Festival of Discovery this is part of is run by the Eden Project, and it's about enabling us, it's about a sense of community, and I just wonder what your observations would be on local activity, or what can communities do together. You've talked about Hampstead Heath and how embedded you are in it, but I bet there's stuff going on here that's positive stuff. You know?
All the time. I mean, you know, Joan and I, I don't think we did it this year, but most years we do this thing with the, you know, litter pick. People go out, like hundreds of people, just go out and clear up all the mess, of which there's, I'm afraid, quite a lot. There's stuff happens here all the time. You know, they had a recently open air cinema out there, which was like, you know, so the cinemas were shut. So I don't even know who did it, but they organised this thing for an open air cinema where people came, socially distanced, sat, and no, it is and again, I think it's the Heath that provides that sense of, because it's a place, it's a physical place. I mean, we're here quite early, right? But I promise you, later today, if you go over there, you've got the running track, but that place will be full of kids playing sport, mainly from the local schools.
I wonder whether lockdown has given rise to a bit more local activism as well, because I'm conscious that sites like Nextdoor, that's grown and it posts stuff that's going on in your area, have really given people an outlet and somewhere where they can exchange ideas and do things together.
Yeah, I think it's always been there. But I think it's been given the kind of, you know, mild form of booster rocket by the fact that people have physically been closer together more of the time.
Also, sitting here, very green and beautiful. Having travelled a lot in Africa, I observe huge changes over the years when it comes to climate and crops and people's ability to feed themselves. The desertification, the kind of...
which, by the way, people here might think that's just a problem for them, but that is one of the things that is continuing to fuel more and more migration. And the migration flows from climate are going to be huge.
But if your crops fail for 3 seasons and your family's starving,
where are you going to go?
Tend to get on your bike if you can and go in search of food, you know. James Joyce, I'm reliably told, said that mistakes are the feeders of discovery. And what do you think about that?
Mistakes are the feeder of discovery. Well, he's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I've got a golden rule of life. I've got all my golden rules on my wall at home. One of them is get good out of bad. If you screw up, work out why. I've got a quote very similar to that from another Irishman, who is not as famous as James Joyce, but he should be. He's called Colm O'Connell. He was an Irish missionary, and he went out to Kenya, and he ended up training some kids in running, middle distance and long distance running, and eventually became the head coach of the Kenyan athletics squad, which is one of the best in the world, right? And he said, the winner is the loser who evaluates defeat properly. So it's very similar to that. It's basically saying, if things are going wrong, work out how you put them right.
Do you think Sean Dyche's going to be able to do that at Burnley?
I'm always hopeful without always being confident.
As an eco-warrior now, could you...
I'm not a Greta level.
Okay.
I went on a plane last week, twice.
Okay, so Alastair, what tips would you give to an individual watching this who might want to get involved in these issues?
I think it works on 2 levels, isn't it? There's the geopolitical, the strategic, and that is incredibly important. So I would actually say to people, they should get involved in politics. They should get involved in local and regional and national groups that are doing stuff in this area. And then there's the kind of the micro day-to-day how we live our lives. And I mean, I do go around the house turning stuff off all the time. I don't know. I've also convinced myself, I don't know if there's another thing, I'm not sure if this is right or wrong. I've convinced myself that if you leave the switch on without a plug in it, that is using power. Because somebody told me that somewhere. So I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'm told that, so I go around and turn all switches off. I think actually not, really, really thinking about whether you should get on a plane. Really working out whether you need to, and if you don't need to, whether you could do it another way. I did, and so I will confess, I flew to Killarney last week. I flew to Dubai the week before, so I'm not pretending I'm a saint in this area. However, I am doing a conference in Bonn in the next few weeks, and I am going to get the train. I think there's stuff as well about, I've never, I come from a agricultural veterinary background, both my parents from that sort of background, and I never really understood the whole meat thing and how cows farting can be such a sort of massive part of what's going on. But when you get into it, you kind of realise. So I have, there'll be relatives still in farming will hopefully not see this, but I've pretty much stopped eating meat. And then there's the whole thing about, when you're out and about, just having these conversations, and so I think it's those two things. There's lots of the little things you can do, but one of the reasons I don't like the debate focusing on that, I think there's a danger that people can say to themselves, it's actually pointless me doing anything, because that big political stuff is where it has to happen. And I think we've got to marry the two, and that becomes a mindset. Do you care about saving the planet or don't you? Do you care about the fact that, when we, and there's a real danger at the moment, I think, that we're becoming numbed to the scale of what's happening. So we had Lewis Pugh on Good Morning Britain the other day, who was doing this swim up in the...
He's an amazing guy.
He's an amazing guy. You talk about our cold water swim in the Lido. He was swimming up off Greenland somewhere as a way of kind of drawing attention to it. And it still looks so beautiful that you look at it and you think, well, it's so easy, so what can I do to stop that? It's so far away and it's so remote, but actually all the little things that we do can add up. But in the end, you know this as well as I do, in the end it is about the big political stuff and the political change happening.
So it's bottom down and
You won't
bottom up and top down.
Put it this way, if you can only have one, you'd have to have the political. However, the micro can keep the pressure on. If governments around the world think that people in their daily lives are really conscious of this, aware of it and caring about it, that does have an impact.
Oh, well, that's interesting, because one of the things we used to do at Common Relief was talk about a climate of understanding.
Yeah.
That if you can build a big enough movement of people who are interested in something, then the politicians will be aware of it and take note of it. So that argues that individual action isn't futile,
well, look,
because it makes a difference.
Just think about, look, you could argue that this debate there's no doubt the debate is in a different place to where it was. Massively. I can remember going back to when we were in power, I remember Liz Lloyd, who was one of our team, coming to, before one of Tony's conference speeches, saying you should do a really big thing about El Nino. Okay, do you remember El Nino? Environment. And we were like, oh, what are you talking about? What are you on about? Because even back then, it just wasn't where the debate was. Now, that is where the debate is now. You won't have a major political leader making a big speech in a democracy these days without some sort of reference, even if they're just, ticking the box, to the climate crisis. So that debate has moved. Has it moved because the planet is getting hotter, and that is indisputable? Is it happening because we are seeing all this loss of wildlife and biodiversity and all that stuff? Or is it happening because of that bottom-up political action drawing attention to that? Now, I don't know the answer to that, but it's happening. And it's happening because people want it to happen.
I wonder if the threat is more to mankind than the planet. I've got this belief that whatever happens to the planet will recover.
Right, but we might be
But
gone.
actually mankind might not, or people kind, I suppose I should say.
Person kind.
Person kind,
Yeah, I mean, because I guess when I talk about, that's interesting. If I think about the planet where, I guess it becomes uninhabitable.
For human beings,
for us.
But it might replenish itself.
Yeah, so the dinosaurs might come back. And we just go around again. Hadn't thought of that. I guess my image of it is the place becoming absolutely flooded or so hot that we can't live in it and our internal organs all
melt,
or it becomes so cold that we can't survive. I hadn't actually thought of that. That's a very good point, Kevin. We cop it. Cop.
A fair cop. I thought this cop should be called a fair cop. But why is cop called cop? The conference of the parties, it's called.
That's what it?
Conference
I thought
of the
it was
parties.
climate organisational.
No, it should be called Save the World or something like that. And on that bombshell. So thanks for that on this lovely
pleasure
Hampstead Heath morning. It was a session for the Festival of Discovery. and we're hoping that it will inspire people to go and watch all the great festival discovery sessions that are online over the 3 days of the event.
And are they all about saving the planet?
No, they're about a whole range of things, just they're essentially trying to make people happier, more content and more connected, really.
Right.
And discover some new things, hence Festival of Discovery.
Excellent, excellent.